Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chat. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Happy Pride Month, everybody! As you can tell by the subject of this episode and the slightly change in aesthetics in the Pride Month thing, this is going to be a Pride-related whole month. Not just with the main series videos, but also with the podcasts, where we're going to be going over various Pride-related things for every video this month. I'm still finishing one, and this is one. It's actually kind of funny that one is the one that came out because I accidentally kind of made this video and the Thursday video accidentally themed somewhat related, but it's going to be completely different. You're when you get the Thursday video, it's going to be vastly different than this, but it is going to be somewhat thematic with this video as well. And also, just a bit of housekeeping for this video is it's a similar thing with last week. You may have remembered I said in last week's podcast that I was using a different microphone, and I'm using that same microphone for this one, the HyperX Quadcast 2, because I don't know, because the Blue Yeti mic I've been working on thus far hasn't been doing so hot. The two videos I have recorded this month are still with the Blue Yeti mic, and I don't know, I guess you guys can just let me know if you think this is a good microphone to replace it. I may still have to toy around with specifically how this mic will be done, but yeah, just let me know on that front, if that's an issue. But with that out of the way, let's get right into the news. The first news story is the fact that I've added this news story because this is a thing that is supposed to be going on, but also it seems to be having some big trouble going on. And it is regarding the upcoming Israeli elections, specifically when it comes to one faction in the Israeli political scene. Now, if you don't know, I made a podcast about the Israeli political scene a while ago when not the most recent elections, it was I think it was the most recent. It might have been the most recent elections, or it might have been a election a little before that. But basically, there was an election that was going on at the time, and I basically went over all the various factions of the Israeli political scene. But of course, we all know many of the factions of the Israeli political scene. We have the Zionist right, the Zionist far right, the Zionist further right. Naftali Bennett has another faction of the Israeli far right. There's the liberal Zionists, there's the labor Zionists, but there is, of course, one final faction within the Israeli political scene that, of course, is probably the one that many people who are watching this channel, subbing to this channel, or just generally in this field probably would like a lot more. And it is the people in Israel who are not part of the, Zionist collective, essentially. Ranging, there's a lot of different, I'm mostly referring to the Arab parties, the Arabic parties, I guess just broadly the Arab parties, because we'll get to that in a little bit, but I just want to, talk about that. And for a little bit of time, there was a time where it's, on and off, they were all joined together into one joint list. The joint list, which became a political party that all four of them coalesced with each other. But then, due to political differances, they would end up splitting apart, and then kind of reforming to an extent, and blah blah blah. And one of the big problems that's one of the big problems with the Arab Israeli parties is the fact that the Arab Israeli parties, because this is the big thing about the Arab Israeli parties. Each of them are small. All of them are very small. All of them represent a small subsection of the Israeli Arab population, and they each have vastly different political bends, and I'll just get into them. I'll just say all four of them. There's Hadash, which is the Israeli Communist Party, which represents a secular communist faction. There's Tal, which is a political party that is broadly Arab nationalist. It is technically Big Tent, but it slightly veers to the left. There's Ram, which is the right-wing Islamist party, I guess. Well, they call it Islamist because, of course, it's Orientalization, but it's basically just a right-wing, Islamic focused party. And lastly, there is Balad, which is for lack of a better term, they are the Palestinian nationalist political party. Again, each of them broadly have slightly different inclinations in regards to politics. Balad is considered social democratic in regards to its economic stances. Hadash is communist. Ram is, of course, right-wing, which is also like very socially conservative, and then Balad is very, very focused on the Palestine issue, and on the in that vein, the Palestine issue is also a massive divide between all of them. Hadash and Tal have traditionally been regarded as two-state solution political parties, and can be broadly described as non-Zionist. They're not technically Zionist, but they are also technically not anti-Zionist. Although I think that might change. That might be changing a little bit because Ofer Kasif, a member of Hadash, has been explicitly anti-Zionist. Balad, of course, being a Palestinian nationalist party, has been a lot more in line with the Palestine issue. They are in favor of a one-state solution, and they are like 100% verifiably like anti-Zionist. And Ram has basically, for lack of a better term, kind of brushed itself off from the Palestine issue. They're mostly focused on the issues surrounding the Arabs and Muslims in Israel. And again, due to their various differences in regards to ideology and strategy, they have broken apart. Like, they came together for that brief period of time, and they actually ended up becoming the third largest party in the Knesset. But afterwards, the tensions between all four of those groups led to them dividing apart, technically. Hadash and Tal were still able to work out their broad differences and form a joint list called Hadash-Tal, but Balad and Ram, they didn't really have that much routes left, at least to stay in the coalition. Like, Ram is still in the Knesset, and Balad has been basically wiped out of the Knesset and has on and off been banned in Israeli politics due to the fact that they are the most radical in regards to the Palestine issue. But in the wake of all the massive attacks against even, like, the quote-unquote not, like, radical parties in that issue, I mean, calling Hadash a party that is not radical on the issue is definitely a bit of a misnomer, but, like, again, they're obviously not as radical as Balad. Members of Balad have actually gotten in trouble because they have actually aided the Palestinian resistance. Members of Hadash haven't gone that far. Doesn't stop Israel from claiming they have gotten that far, but that's a different story. But basically, that has led to, Hadash has been the leading force to try and revive the joint list, have all of these parties come together into one group. And the problem is, all of them, and here's the thing, Balad and Tal, they're all, they agree. The one party that is having a lot of trouble with this is Ram. Ram is the one party that is just they're not really into the idea. They're even to the point where they've on and off said that they will join the joint list, but they are also the ones who have been kind of sabotaging the joint list of reforming, for lack of a better term. And one of the big things that has been the main contention is just, how does the joint list operate? Their main thing that they want to do is that they want the joint list to basically just be a candidate list for the election and nothing more, where they just divide the groupings, they divide the votes among each of the parties, and then afterwards all the parties function as if they are different parties. And it's also because Ram has been the party that's actually been way more open to working with the, broader anti-Netanyahu alliance. There was at one point where, there was, the massive anti-Netanyahu alliance that had, all of, the labor Zionists, the liberal Zionists, and all of them work together. But there were three parties that were not in part of that alliance or in the Netanyahu alliance, which were the joint list, which didn't have Ram in it, Ram, and Naftali Bennett. And basically, Naftali Bennett said, I don't want to work with the Arabs, and then both of the parties were a little bit hesitant to work with Naftali Bennett due to his right-wing stances on the Palestine issue. But when push came to shove, Ram and Bennett were able to work out their differences to work together. Meanwhile, the joint list, which, included Hadash, Tal, and Balad, they weren't able to, reconcile their differences. So again, Ram is basically the party that's kind of, stopping this joint list from happening. And that's a big problem because the joint list really, really, really needs to be around, because if the joint list isn't around, there really is just no route for them politically, for Israeli Arabs, or even a big opposition to Zionism in Israel. That's the sad truth. I know that it shouldn't be the end all be all strategy of just electoral politics, but the fact of the matter is you have to have a faction of electoralism in the plan. Electoralism has to be part of the plan, otherwise you can't enact change. So yeah, hopefully the joint list it actually ends up going through, and they actually manage to pull some massive change in Israel, because I'm sure a lot of us would like to see it. But anyways, let's move on to the next story. And it is a news story regarding a interesting development that is going on in Latin America. Now, for those of you who don't know, obviously Donald Trump has been trying to push hard in Latin America, especially in regards to Mexico, and that's been one of their main targets. And like, it's not just Mexico, but also Colombia, wanting on the boots ground invasions to attack and kill the quote unquote drug cartels. But in actuality, we all know what they're really after. Well, an interesting development happened because it was reported that Donald Trump had actually made a deal in a couple of other countries in Latin America, and he basically said like he wanted to basically use these deals to lead into like basically trying to like, go on and be like, hey, come on, I mean, this is a situation that's going on. And one of the countries that he said he was in an alliance with to like put boots on the ground to invade and take out the drug cartels was Guatemala. Except there was one big problem. Bernardo Arevalo has stated, quote, "There is no agreement authorizing foreign military operations by any country within our national territory." Like, he stated, like, we have agreements with the United States on some capacity, obviously, but the claim that they are actually, like setting boots to the ground in Guatemala is just a flat-out lie. I did not authorize that, and that would be a very big surprise if that did happen. And it's like, very interesting development, again, and it's just, I mean, honestly, there's not much for me to say, honestly, because it's just like, shocker, Donald Trump lied once again. He has lied about a situation again, and is threatening autonomy in another Latin American country again, for dubious claims of drug cartels again, and it's getting tiring, bro. All of this because he really got mad that Claudia Sheinbaum epically pwned him and is beating the United States in every sense of the word. That's just, again, it just needs to be overstated how we literally live in a world where, again, this is not me to like, this isn't me to like diss Mexico or anything, but it's just like, we're supposed to be better than Mexico, and yet literally next year Mexico's gonna get universal health care, and we still can't even arrest like the fucking child sex traffickers that run the fucking US government. It's like, wow, we have evidence that Donald Trump is a child sex trafficker, and we still can't arrest him for some reason. But yeah, let's move on to the next story, because it's another interesting development. So, okay, so this is an interesting one. Speaking of Trump and arresting, it's Donald Trump has announced, like, he's basically told prosecutors who are currently investigating the Venezuela cases, he's currently told them to stop investigating Delcy Rodriguez, making the stunning announcement that the current, like, they basically told the department, industry behind the scenes, like, do not invest, like, anything you have on Delcy Rodriguez now, don't do it anymore. You're done. There, no more. This is, again, despite the fact that for a long time, like, literally it says, like, DEA records obtained by the Associated Press earlier this year show that she consistently surfaced on the radar of federal law enforcement, dating at least to 2018, though she has never been criminally charged in the U.S., linked to other senior Venezuelan officials. To which is like, yeah, of course, if you're going to claim that the Venezuelan government was, like, embezzling a bunch of money for drug trafficking, of course she would be involved. She's the fucking vice president of Venezuela. Like, she was always part of, like, the fucking, like, pyramid that they always painted. And then magically, the second that she is in charge and she's, like, doing what the United States wants, magically, again, they're just like, nope, no more investigations. Again, and this is why I can't take any of their fucking, like, drug cartels claims seriously. It's like, this is one person that comments about, like, but Mexico is run by the drug cartels. It's like, no, sorry, I don't believe it. Sorry, like, sorry, bro. I'm just sorry. I just can't believe it. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, when you have situations like this, where it's just like, it's like, literally, it's just like, when you have the double standard, I'm not even going to entertain the lie. I'm not even going to entertain the thing. If, like, it's just going to be this blatant, and it's just like, look, okay, so, like, literally, Delcy Rodriguez was one of the evil narco-terrorists that was targeted by the Trump administration. Like Maduro and Petro and Morena and Ruben Moya. Ooh, all those scary narco-terrorists. Ooh. Then the second that she is a part of the United States, magically she's like, oh, no, she's fine. Magically, no more investigation. So no, I'm not even going to entertain the notion that, I'm not even going to entertain your notion. I'm not even going to entertain the notion of, like, oh, but, like, these Marin officials are controlled by the drug cartel. It's like, I'm not entertaining it. I'm sorry, I'm just not entertaining it. When you show this massive double standard, it's just, I can't take your claims seriously on any of this stuff. It's the same thing where, like, they literally do the meme, where it's like, I mean, like, I mentioned it in the last episode, where it's like, oh, blaming, like, this foreign nation for doing this evil thing, and it's like, but the U.S. has done this evil thing, like, 10 times over. It's like, I can't take your claim seriously about this when you won't hold this other side accountable to these actions. Like, I can, like I'll give an example, one big one. It's like, I can call out the Uyghur genocide and the Palestinian genocide because I hold the same standard when we do a thing and when other sides do a thing. But we live in a world where a lot of people say Uyghur genocide but no Palestinian genocide, or Palestinian genocide but no Uyghur genocide. And since I actually hold both sides accountable, I actually think we should actually do something about both of these things. It's actually really funny because, like, it's like that thing where it's like, it's actually really funny because, like, a lot of people like to say, like, like, that the Uyghur genocide was an op. Not necessarily an op, but, like, it was clearly, like, propagandized by the United States. And that's obviously true, that it was obviously heavily propagandized in the United States because of, red baiting China. But it's like, it's funny because, like, them doing that is what made me, not necessarily what made me pro-Palestine, because I was pro-Palestine, when did they start, like, propaganda? I don't know when I started, like, fully getting, like, the Uyghur genocide stuff, but, like, it had to have been, I mean, I don't know, because, like, I don't know when the United States was, like, when I specifically, like, started hearing a lot about the Uyghur genocide. It had to have been around the same time, but, like, it's, like, again, it's, like, like, the U.S. was telling me, like, Uyghur genocide bad, Uyghur genocide bad, Uyghur genocide bad, Uyghur genocide bad. It's like, yes, that is true, Uyghur genocide bad. And due to that fact, I will also say Palestinian genocide bad, Palestinian genocide bad, Palestinian genocide bad, because what is happening in Palestine is way worse than what was happening in Xinjiang. Both are bad, yes, and both should be stopped, yes, but again, one was a larger, like, I mean, even just, like, purely just, like, going over the fact that it's, like, 1948 to now, death toll is going to be a lot bigger. Now, ultimately, a lot of the same genocidal intent is there on both sides in elements, because, like, I mean, I've had debates with people who denied the Uyghur genocide, and they basically said the exact same things that Zionists have said about, like Palestinians. And that's just the big problem. It's like, why don't you see both sides of the situation? I don't understand how you can see it's bad on one side and then not bad on the other side. I don't understand how your brain works in that regard. Personally, I think killing people is bad, and genocide is bad. Hot take, extra, read all about it. It's E. Pluribus Unum's hot take, genocide bad. But that's just a hot take that I'm just going to have to live with. And speaking of all of these horrible, disgusting genocides, all of these tragic events that are going on in the world right now, just absolute travesty. We can, like, I can go on and on about all the various genocides, all the various, like, mass repression, the rise of fascism, all of these evil, bad things that are going on in the world right now. You know what? Let's see what one of the major alleged, like, opponents to all these bad things around the world is doing. Let's take a look at one of the MPs of the left-wing party in the UK. What are they doing right now to combat these very big, massive political problems in the world? Well, a Labour MP by the name of David Taylor has called on the Home Office of the United Kingdom to ban Hasan Piker from the UK because David Taylor is really opposed to the idea of opposing genocide. He's even gotten to the point where he objected to the renewal of Francesca Albanese's role on the Special Rapporteur for the Occupied Palestinian Territories, labeling her as anti-Semitic. Such hard-hitting, he's got his finger right on the pulse of the UK youth. I'm sure of all the issues that the United Kingdom wants him to talk about thus far, he would absolutely love to just hear him talk about Hasan Piker more. That's because that's the thing that we all want to hear, right? Like, I mean, remember when, like, the American Democratic Party, like, spent, like months going after Hasan Piker? I'm sure you guys wanted them to do that. I'm sure you didn't want them to, like, lower your healthcare costs. I'm sure you didn't want them to, like, you know, call out genocide. I'm sure you didn't want them to do anything, like, actually important. I'm sure the one major issue that you wanted them to hear about is, what is my Democratic Congresswoman's opinion on Hasan Piker? Like, I'm sure that's all you want to hear. I'm sure that a lot of people want to know, like, I'm sure a lot of you, if you guys live in a blue district, I'm sure you might want them to know, like, what's your opinion on Pluribus Unum? What's your opinion on this random YouTuber? Like, let's just start getting into that. Why don't we have those issues now? Why can't fucking, like, members of Congress talk about, like, denouncing me? Why can't they do that? I mean, if we're looking at focusing on the main issues, these are, like, the important issues of the world right now. You know, whether or not they specifically condone or condemn a fucking podcaster. Yeah, that's the one issue that you want them to fucking talk about. Yeah, these guys wonder why they're fucking failing. Like, yeah, there really is just not much else for me to say, because, like, Labor Party is gonna fucking fail, and if they don't, like, I mean, you have, like, look, it's either your party or Greens. I guess that's really depends on whether or not Corbyn can get his fucking shit together, but, like, UK is fucking doomed. I mean, we're all doomed. I mean, again, like, we're all doomed. I mean, like, our government officials don't want to talk about anything important. They're all fucking failing. They're all, like, old and dying. It's just a fucking travesty. Like, I mean, the right-wing leaders in fucking Australia are currently debating on whether or not the, like, fucking television station rigged the vote against Israel in Eurovision because Australia didn't award a single vote to them. And it's like, man, that's so crazy. It's like, or maybe Israel didn't get any fucking votes because no one fucking likes Israel. But, like, you know, besides the point. It's just whatever. Let's just move on to the last story. And it's going to be a little bit of a levity story, a little bit of a funny story, but also a little bit of a debunking story to an extent. Now, we've gotten our first official, quote-unquote, major horse to enter in the 2028 presidential election. A man by the name of Dan Graney, who is a television writer, has announced that he will be running for the Republican nomination in 2028. Now, why am I bringing him up specifically? Well, because not only is his announcement video very interesting, he's announced that he will run his campaign as a progressive Republican in the tradition of Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt, and named policies like universal health care and the Green New Deal as planks in his presidential platform. But also because of the main way that he has been touted in his presidential election, which he also did in his video, where he has been touted by the media as the television writer who predicted Donald Trump's presidency. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, Dan was a writer on The Simpsons, and one of the episodes he wrote was Bart to the Future, which was an episode where Bart is shown a vision of his future, and one of the parts of the vision of his future was Lisa Simpson became president of the United States, and in that moment, she had stated in her first presidential meeting, she says, like, man, things have been really bad ever since President Donald Trump left office. What is your thoughts on this? And then it's like, we're broke, and it's like, that's the joke. The joke is that Donald Trump was president in that election, in that episode, and then he either lost or was termed out, and then Lisa Simpson became president after him. And that's been, like, one of the main things. That's been one of the things that's been cited for, like, a million years. We're like, oh, The Simpsons predicts the future. Alongside all those bullshit things where it's like, they have that one, like, fucking, like, poster where it's like $9 with the Twin Towers in the background. It's like, oh, 9/11, woo! Like, and it's evolved to be, like, this fucking insane psychosis where they literally say, like, oh, The Simpsons predicted all of these major events, including but not limited to, and then they bring up, like, Michael Jackson's death, because Michael Jackson's name was on a gravestone in one episode. They conveniently don't mention whether or not that episode was produced before his death or after his death. And sometimes they'll literally just flat out make up screen caps and make things up, and then pretend that The Simpsons predicted it. Like, this is a really fucked up one that I'm going to mention. And it's where somebody drew fan art of Lisa Simpson protesting George Floyd's death. And it was a picture of Chief Wiggum with his knee on George Floyd's neck with Lisa Simpson standing next to him. The art is already kind of in poor taste, but it's worse because people literally took that picture and claimed that was the Simpsons predicting George Floyd's death. And the psychosis of this specific one is insane because every single time this happens, they post the same things where it's like this is the fucking like stupid thing, because like they'll post pictures of like Homer Simpson next to Donald Trump, and it'll be like Donald Trump's like at like a podium that says like Trump 2016, and it'll have like a caricature of Donald Trump. It'll have like the escalator, and then it's like they're all gonna be like, wow, this is so insane. The Simpsons was so accurate in predicting Donald Trump was gonna be president. Oh my gosh, they got everything right. They got every single detail completely right. And they attribute all those screenshots to this episode. But those screenshots are not from this episode. Those screenshots are from a video that was mocking the Trump 2016 announcement that was made at the time of Donald Trump's election announcement. In fact, there are audio clips of Trump's announcement in that section. It's like wow, they literally are so fucking stupid. They're like, oh wow, they even predicted the guy who dropped the fucking Trump sign in the background. It's like, yeah, they didn't predict that because the video is making fun of it. That's the joke. The joke is they're making fun of the thing. And for this episode, like the future episode, it wasn't a prediction. The episode was made in 2000 when Donald Trump launched his first presidential bid. It was like because people forget, Donald Trump ran for president in 2000 with the Reform Party. That was the double-edged joke of that scene, that not only did Donald Trump win the Reform Party nomination, but also Donald Trump, through this useless political party called the Reform Party, somehow managed to become president. And the joke is that the Reform Party and Donald Trump were massive failures, that they led to this economic crash. That was the joke. It's the equivalent of if during the 2020 election, someone made a joke about Cornel West being elected president. That was the joke. The joke is that is an outlandish scenario in and of itself. And The Simpsons has made jokes about that at the time, where they made jokes about Ross. Matt Groening really fucking hates the Reform Party because there are a lot of jokes in his shows where he just makes fun of the Reform Party. He hates the Reform Party so fucking much. He made a joke where it's literally Kang and Kodos became presidential candidates. Well, you have to vote for one of us. It's well, I'll vote for a third party candidate. It's go ahead, throw your vote away, and then they become enslaved by Kang and Kodos because people just won't fucking vote for Ross Perot. Ross Perot's even there, and he slams his hat into screens fucking damn it. And there's another episode of Futurama where all the Futurama characters become idiots, and the Fry's wait a minute, I know what happened to all you guys. You've all become idiots, and they all say, hey, let's all join the Reform Party. Yeah. That's the joke. The joke is that he hated the Reform Party and he hated Trump at the time. He thought because at the time, again, they also thought at the time, the same with his 2016 run, they thought his first run for president was a publicity stunt, which turns out it basically was. It's why they didn't take his 2016 run seriously, because of his fucking 2000 run. And Dan is basically running, quote unquote, this campaign with that notion. Because his video was he made two videos, one in April when he first filed the FEC, and then he made this other one that made this official announcement of him announcing that he was running for president. But the first one was he was I am a sorcerer, and he was making fake predictions about other things, and he made, and the joke is here he's making these other things. He's claiming that he's basically Nostradamus. I forget the exact term that he used, but he's again basically claiming that he is a Nostradamus. I don't blame him. He's just doing it for the lulz. He's just doing the joke. I mean, doing it as a joke is one thing, but if you're actually seriously in this realm of fucking predictive TV, whatever about this bullshit, it's just insane. It's just it's just psychosis. Parallelomania is another term. Parallelomania. You see things that aren't there. I saw the same thing happen again, where it's I saw a video where some dude was talking wow, if 9/11 wasn't planned, then how come they kept putting all these things in the fucking TV shows? And it's what? Like, these aren't predicting 9/11. It's like, one of them is like the Hulk smashing the Twin Towers. Like, I don't think the Hulk smashed the Twin Towers on 9/11, dude. And then there's another one where it's like, there's a picture in the background of a building that is on fire, and it's like, wow, because that only happened one time in the world history. 9/11 2001 was the only time in world history that a building was caught on fire. But it said coming soon. It's like, yeah, because it was a movie poster at the background of a fucking Johnny Bravo gag. To get on the theme of Pride Month, I'll end it with a quote by legendary gay icon Pearl from Steven Universe, where it's like, this is what it all is. It's like, humans lead short, boring, insignificant lives, so you make up stories to feel like you're a part of something bigger. You want to blame all the world's problems on a single enemy you can fight, instead of a complex network of interconnected forces that are beyond anybody's control. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's move on to the main topic of this video. Very interesting title, very interesting and controversial title for this video, isn't it, huh? Man, we're starting off Pride Month strong this episode, because yeah, Pride Month has got to be big. It's got to be fucking big this year, and we ain't pulling no punches. There's a very specific reason why I'm making this video, why I chose this podcast to be the first one and to whatever. Because a couple of months ago, earlier in the year, I saw like a couple of things of like every so this, and I guess this really is like it's not necessarily like I'm rambling, but like earlier this year, I saw a tweet that was like trying to relitigate this story. And I don't even have to like say like that, because there was another tweet that was a little bit earlier than this episode, but not as like, I'm referring to like literally like in January I saw posts about this story. But again, like it seems that every couple of months this story pops up and gets propagandized as a way to, like, sometimes people don't, like, they're not necessarily trying to necessarily propagandize people, but sometimes like it ends up obviously becoming a propaganda piece because of if you know the story, you know why it would become a very obvious propaganda piece. Like, I mean, I think literally when I saw that stuff, I literally posted something. I think I posted something where it's like, wait, people are posting this as an anti-trans thing? Because this is the thing, like, I had, I think 2 Pride Months ago, actually, it was either the last Pride Month or 2 Pride Months ago, because I made a podcast exclusively about, like, just, like, trans rights or human rights. I don't know. That wasn't the title, but it was, like, something like, it's stupid to oppose trans rights. It was something like that. I was, like, I think it was 2 Pride Months ago, or whatever. Because there was one other time where I tried to, like, last Pride Month, I tried to also do this, but I couldn't think of any topics, so, unfortunately, that Pride Month wasn't like that, but this Pride Month we're not pulling any punches. We're going hard on this one. But I basically made an entire podcast on the issue of trans rights, and in that video, I actually mentioned that I did some smaller research on the David Reimer case, because it was a case that I saw every so often, and to me, I had already done that. I looked into it, and when I did that, it actually, like, I mean, it didn't make me more pro-trans, but it's like, to me, the story does not come as an oppositional to trans thing. It actually reinforces being pro-trans to me, in my ideology. Like, if you look at the story and think about it for more than 5 seconds, like, I mean, when you first see it, you think, of course, in the knee-jerk reaction way that reactionaries view their worldview, that might make them think, blah, 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 blah. But then if you think about it for more than 5 seconds, you realize, wait a minute. Hold on. Something's not adding up. And I figured that I mentioned it very briefly in that video, but I decided maybe, because I don't think it would be a good use to like just link that like small section and just based on that, maybe instead, why not dedicate an entire podcast to that very same subject? But first, before we get into that, I think it's, of course, best if we, re-examine, re-explain what the David Reimer story is for anybody who doesn't know about this story. Because I think it's, or even if you don't know about the story, or if you do know about the story, it might be good to get a little quick refresher to understand. Because, again, understanding the story understands my perspective on how this is. Now, to be clear, like I'm gonna say a couple of things before I get into it. One, I will exclusively be referring to David as David, and using he, him pronouns for David regarding the story. And that's one big thing that you also need to understand about when these David Reimer stories pop up. Because they always give David Reimer's, like, because I'm not necessarily going to claim fault for every single person who posts about the David Reimer story when they're trying to do this. But they will say, like, here's how it will always be. They'll be like, David, birth name, blank, then given the name blank. Like, they always refer to David, like, they refer to David's name, obviously. They call David David, but they also say David's birth name and, for lack of a better term, dead name. The name they were assigned at birth, and then the name that they were assigned after birth. But I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be referring to David exclusively as David. David chose the name David to be his name. That is what David chose. So I will be respecting David Reimer's wishes by referring to David as David. Again, I'm not necessarily going to fault every single person who refers to David with the previous names in regards to certain contexts, in regards to the educational aspect of the story. I can understand it purely in educational context. But in the same way, I also understand that some people might be using the educational context to also be a little bit weird. It's like the guy who is very eager to read the N-word in Huckleberry Finn. Yes, I get not censoring it for the sake of educational purposes, but I also understand, obviously, there are some people who could use that in a way to be a little bit, cringe. And another thing that I'm going to state that I'm sure everybody will understand when they read the subject, and will clearly never take me out of context in this regard, because I'm sure that the people who are oppositional to my perspective will gladly listen to my perspective fully through and just not spam hate comments or whatever. But this is not me implying what David Reimer's stance on the trans issue would be. I do not know what David's stances on trans issues were. I don't know what his stances on any political issue are, or religious issue. I don't know. I didn't know David. I didn't know David personally, and I can't ask him questions. And I'm not here to speak on his behalf. I am here to relay this story that has happened in history, and hopefully clear the record of one of its major many of its major misconceptions, and giving my perspective on this story and how that relates to my broader ideology. And I'm also just going to include this disclaimer: I am by no means any sort of medical professional or any sort of I'm not a professional in any capacity. I'm a guy with a microphone and a little too much time on his hands who's a pseudo-intellectual at best. With that out of the way, let us set the scene of who David is and why do we know a lot about him. It's August 22nd, 1965. Twin boys were born to Janet and Ron Reimer. Things seemed normal at first, but the new parents soon noticed something about their sons, particularly the way they peed, which was a little different and weird than how, kids, babies normally pee. They took the twin boys to a doctor, and the doctor diagnosed the two boys with a condition called phimosis, which is a medical condition where your foreskin is too tight around the head of your penis, and it can't erect properly. You see, the way your penis is supposed to work, if you have one, is that the foreskin is supposed to be there, it's supposed to be loose enough so that when you get erect, the skin basically matches you at full mast. And also, it's of course supposed to act as natural lubricant for when, things get busy. But phimosis is a condition that means the skin is too small to do that. And it can manifest in a lot of different ways. Primarily, it could mean that your penis head pushes against the skin, which causes you pain when you get erect. Or sometimes, in the most drastic situations, it causes the complete inability for the head of the penis to retract from the foreskin. And apparently, in early life, phimosis is actually extremely common, or at least common enough that doctors do not necessarily worry about it initially, as it usually ends up resolving at one point in your maturity. But if it's already starting to cause a lot of problems, then the doctor will recommend circumcision to fix the issue. Because, when you circumcise the penis, you won't have, your foreskin at all. So, no foreskin, no problem. In the case for David and his brother Brian, since it was causing them problems when they pee, the doctors recommended circumcision. But the doctor in question, Jean-Marie Huot, decided that rather than try the typical methods of circumcision, they'd try electrocauterization, where an electric current is used to burn the unneeded tissue on your body. And when they did the procedure, they had accidentally damaged David's penis beyond repair, which caused his parents to flat out cancel the procedure that was going to be done with Brian, basically just choosing to let Brian live with it. And when they did, Brian's phimosis would end up resolving itself, seemingly implying that had David's parents waited, this would have been a complete non-issue. But unfortunately, David's parents were just completely fucking Neanderthal stupid, so they had ended up permanently disfiguring their infant son. So now the question became, what do we do now? And while wondering this, they had saw a television interview with a man named John Money, a sexologist and psychologist who had some very specific theories about gender that made the parents think, this guy might actually understand what our concern is. And so they booked an appointment with him to try to figure out what's the solution to his dilemma. Now, what was John Money's specific theory that caught their eye? It was something John Money had dubbed the theory of gender neutrality, which was the idea that gender identity was purely a product of social learning during the first few years of life. Clearly a somewhat extremist version of the nature versus nurture argument in regards to human sexuality. You know what that is. If you don't know what that is, it's basically the argument that scientists had where it's is homosexuality or LGBTQ things genetic, or is it a product of your environment? Money, of course, again, being part of, I guess, the extremist version of the nurture side. And Money's main way of trying to prove this theory was through experiments done on children that were born intersex. People who were born with a biological makeup that does not necessarily fit under the male and female dichotomy. Because their parents were the ones who had the most concerns about the gender question of their children. Because again, if their child was born intersex with either sex organs or sexual chromosomes or sexual characteristics or just genetic characteristics that do not necessarily fit in the male and female paradigm. So the parent was what the fuck do we do? So John Money's solution was basically condition the intersex kids to be whichever side is more favored. And of course, do a little bit of extra stuff to make sure that they are a lot more on one side. Obviously that would imply, surgeries, hormone treatments, and other things. And that is what he said to David's parents, saying rather than simply taking David to get corrective surgery on their penis to just fix their penis, instead, a better solution for this issue would be to forcibly give David a vaginoplasty and raise David as if he were a girl. Because, again, this was the method that he would use for intersex people. Force them to get a specific gender surgery to, make them more like one, and then, socially condition them to be, the gender that they are assigning them. And one of the major conditions that John Money said when saying that we will do this procedure for David, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, was that also he would want to publish the results of this study, that he would call this study the John Joan case, and he would basically use this experiment as a way to further prove his theory. because John Money basically concluded that if he was able to convince David that he was a girl, his theory could be proven without a shadow of a doubt. Because in his mind, that was his perspective. That his theory was that he could legitimately convince cisgender boys who have absolutely no inclinations of being transgender, who have no interest in being women, nothing. He could convince cisgender boys through his procedures that they could become women, that they could become heterosexual women. Literally, he wanted to convince he literally believed that he could convince cis-het boys through all these procedures, and they could walk out being a woman, a completely quote-unquote normal woman, if they just go through the John Money way of doing things. And like, look, if you're a scientist and you get your theories proven right, you're like a fucking big league. You're in the big leagues, boy. That's one of the big things about him. Like he wanted to be in the big leagues. He wanted to be like the new Freud. So a lot was riding on this experiment for John Money, and he put a lot of effort into making sure that this would work. And he put a lot of effort into this, because he genuinely was like, this is what we have to do. This is the belief system that he had. He already did this with a bunch of intersex kids, but he wanted to like prove again he could do this with a cis-het person, and just unequivocally like, yes, I can do this, and nobody would question it. Like he's like, if I could do this, then I will be proven right beyond a shadow of a doubt. Because there was always like that. There was always like the there was always like the small inclinations of like, obvious, like, I mean, quote unquote, obviously this would work with an intersex person for these reasons, but again, he wanted to prove like beyond a shadow of doubt he could do it with, like, he could do it. That was his big proof. And the things about these experiments was that it was not just social conditioning and secretly slipping David some estrogen pills here and there to kind of like reinforce, feminine puberty. But it also included aspects like forced genital inspections. And unsurprisingly, when David did not want to strip for the old man that wanted to see him naked, John Money would scream at David so loud that David literally stated, quote, "I thought he was going to give me a whooping." But of course, the most infamous aspect of this experiment was like this is the most important aspect of his experiment. This was one of the we just gotta say it. The most controversial aspect of this experiment, and the most important part of this experiment in John Money's eyes, was the childhood sexual rehearsal plays, where in order to instill the idea to David that he was a woman, like, again, to reinforce the gender norms of being a woman onto David, he would force David and his brother to engage in play sex as early as 6 years old. Like, literally, he would like coach them. Like, he would force Brian to be on top of David and would like make sure that they basically did everything except actually doing it. And before any of you ask, yes, John Money was actively in the room, literally touching them and forcing them closer to each other, and recording and taking photographs of it for research purposes. I'm sure there's nothing that's going to come up in this video that will make me think that he has any ulterior motives in regards to this at all. We in the business call that foreshadowing. Naturally, this was obviously a very traumatic experience for Brian and David, with David becoming suicidal by the age of 13. And while, of course, again, I mentioned this before, David and Brian were fucking, like, they were fucked up. Like, they were fucked up by these events. But David's issues in regards to this were always a little deeper than Brian, because David always felt a little off. David never wore dresses, he never really acted particularly feminine, and while his mom would try to reassure him by saying things like, "Oh, you're just a tomboy, da-da-da-da," David knew something wasn't right. Everyone kept saying, David, you're a girl. you're a girl, you're a girl, you're a girl, you're a girl, you're a tomboy, you're a girl, you're da da da. Like, everyone kept saying it every day for David's life. David was like, something's not right. No, something's not right. I mean, yeah, obviously there was a lot of things not right with the situation, but specifically on this aspect, David knew something was wrong. David was good at masking his emotions at first, but the mask doesn't last forever. And ultimately, this led to a confrontation with his parents at the age of 14, where he point blank told them if they took him to John Money again, he would kill himself. Like, he made that unequivocally clear that if they did that, he would end his life. And that must have been a massive wake-up call to his parents, because after that, they just told him everything. They told him everything right then and there. And it was also right then and there that David just stopped. He stopped going to John Money. He stopped pretending to be something he wasn't. He went to get a double mastectomy. He finally got a phalloplasty. And he finally was like, that's where he learned. He's like, I am David. This is me. This is who I am. And he could finally stop pretending to be something he's not. Like, I cannot imagine what David felt in that moment. And David tried his best to live a normal life. He got married. He adopted 3 kids. He found hobbies. Like, he really tried to live a normal life. But unfortunately, scars that were left behind by this incident never really fully healed. And one of the aspects that showed that this wasn't fully healed was when when David Reimer was talking to another sexologist named Milton Diamond. And while talking, I guess the conversation came up about their past. And then after this happened, Milton Diamond was like, wait. You're not talking about the John Joan case, right? What? What do you mean? As it turns out, John Money was touting the John Joan experiment as a complete success all the way up to the 1990s, and was using that as the justification to treat people with interest. Like it was behind the scenes in the scientific community. John Money's theory was right, and that was how you had to deal with intersex people. You had to deal with intersex people the way John Money was describing it. That was how it was believed. And they knew, we can't just sit idly by and let this happen. So, the two, Milton and David, would team up with a journalist named John Colapinto and would publish articles revealing the truth of this whole thing, even expanding upon it further in a public biography called As Nature Made Him, which is when David would officially come out as John/Joan. And David started making a lot of public appearances denouncing this experiment and explaining, like, this didn't work at all. Like, this is just a flat out lie. Whatever he's telling you is just a fucking lie. But the years after that publication of that biography, things would start taking an even worse turn for David's personal life. He was fired from his job, his wife left him, and his brother Brian would intentionally overdose on his psychiatric medication. And ultimately, this would culminate in David taking his own life on May 4th of 2004. And while I can't state specifically that these incidents were caused by what John Money did to him, I think it's not unreasonable for us to say that this might have had a role in what happened. I mean, even if we just want to say it was just the scrutiny of what happened when David went public, I think it's just, again, I can't say much, but I think we all have our opinions on that regard. And while John Money would try to deny the claims that this experiment failed, privately, he was fucking devastated and would end up dying 2 years later. And nothing of value was lost when John died. Like, literally, this is how fucking fucked John Money is in regards to how this works. There is literally, on his Wikipedia page, there is a link to a page called Compra Chicos, and I'm like, what? And I click it, and turns out those are a group in in European folklore who were said to physically cripple and deform children to work as beggars or living curiosities. And it's just like, again, I honestly cannot say anything. I can't say that's necessarily a inaccurate statement to give to John Money, because he's a fucking piece of shit. There's a lot of things that he is, and again, this is a pretty fucked up story all throughout. And again, to reiterate, I'm not stating what David Reimer's perspectives on the transgender issue is. I don't know his political philosophy. I don't know anything about him. I mean, I know about this story, obviously, but I do not know the in and outs of David Reimer specifically. What I'm doing is using the available information to me and base my worldview on that information, not the other way around. And while many choose to weaponize the story of David Reimer as a way to further demonize a minority group with no power, honestly, when I do more research into this story, I cannot fathom how you can do that unless you fundamentally do not understand the David Reimer story. You have to not know anything about David Reimer. You have to know nothing about John Money. You have to know nothing about any of these people. And given some of the people who say some of these things, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. And first, I'm going to address one specific thing that I see. I'm going to address one specific video that I saw. It's when you type David Reimer on YouTube, there's a video that comes up with the phrase, there's a lot of videos that come up about David Reimer's story, but one of the videos that pop up is a video that has in the title of the video the phrase, "The origin of transgender surgery," again, implying that David Reimer is a big, it's implying that this was either the first transgender surgery or one of the earliest ones. And that's just a flat out lie. Gender affirming surgery has existed in some capacity for a long time, dating all the way back to the 2nd century, when a Roman emperor named Elagabalus asked for a surgeon to give them a vagina. And in a more modern sense, transgender surgeries were very common, were pretty commonplace starting in the 1910s, with an American tuberculosis specialist, Alan L. Hart, transitioning in 1917. And the rise of the German Institute of Sexual Science was performing transgender surgeries up until the Nazis came in and tore that down. And even, other examples like Christine Jorgensen. But again, I know why this specific person is doing it, because I didn't watch the video. I did not watch the video. That's a big thing to be clear. I did not watch the video because I scrolled through the rest of the channel and I know exactly what I'm going to get when I watch this video. And again, the fact that they titled that video "The Origin of Transgender Surgery" is to make a heavy implication about this story, that this story is relating to the trans movement is related to the trans movement or has some influence in the trans movement or whatever. And I think one major thing that really undersells, this really is one of the most underlying things that really people need to understand when talking about the story. David Reimer was not trans. David Reimer did not get a say in any of this. This story should not be used as a way to demonize trans people for the very simple fact that David Reimer was not transgender. Again, David Reimer did not get a say in this matter. This was forced onto them when they were a mere infant. The current consensus with transgender medicine is that you don't get to start HRT until you are 13 or 14, and you can't do bottom surgery until you are a legal adult at the age of 18 or older. David Reimer had both of these procedures done on him before he had even reached the age of 13. And again, I need to keep emphasizing this fact. David did not get a say in the matter. Trans kids want to transition. David Reimer did not. This was all forced upon him. Literally, again, You're comparing apples to oranges in this situation. And I get why a lot of conservatives do this. They want to fearmonger on this. They want to fearmonger on the idea of, like, they're transing the kids. The kids aren't getting a say. It's actually the liberal parents that are saying it. It's like, no. No. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. The fact that this happened in an era that was less favorable to trans people. This was, like, the trans medical consensus now is better because now we actually consult what the child wants in this situation. Meanwhile, again, this entire situation happened in an era that was way less in favor of trans rights, that was way less open about trans rights, and again, David did not get a say. It was purely the parents that got a say in this. Again, it's kind of, you're actually a lot more on the side of the parents, because we'll get to that in a little bit later in the video, but yeah, the conservatives are actually a lot more on the side of the parents in this situation. But let's use this example to explain what I mean. Okay, so in 2020, there is a dentist named Denver Tackett who was found to have been making a lot of unnecessary dental extractions in exchange for a higher payment from Medicaid. That is a big thing. Like, that is a very fucked up situation that happened. He was doing a lot of extractions of people who didn't need to have their teeth extracted in order to get a higher payout. Alright, that was a bad thing, and we can all agree that was a bad thing. Does that mean now we have to go around all across America to say, no more dental extractions? Dental extractions are evil. Take a look at what Denver Tackett did. They're secretly trying to force more dental extractions on people. No. Just because one crank did a bad thing does not mean the entire surgery of dental extractions is no longer a valid medical practice and gets rid of procedure. A lot of people need dental extractions. That's a fact of the situation, a fact of the world. And there are some people who are trans who need to, have transgender surgery. There are people who need to have, this stuff happen. Again, David didn't get a say. David didn't want this. David didn't get a say. David didn't want this. That's one of the big things you need to keep emphasizing. David is not trans, so this is not a good example of trans people. It's not even like a detransition story. Like, I think I've heard some people literally try to say, like, David was a detransitioner. It's like, no, David, again, it's, whatever. I guess, let's move on to the next point. The angle, one angle that a lot of people, another angle that is, a lot of people overlook in regards to this story is in regards to, the way that people want to skew this for a political narrative is they want to ignore John Money's philosophy and intentions in regards to this. Because this is one big fact that you also need to understand. One, David Reimer was not trans, okay? But this is also another fact you need to understand. John Money was not pro-trans. There is some inclination that he might have thought in any semblance of his fucked up mind that he might have been pro-trans in some capacity in his brain, but he wasn't at all. At all. Especially by modern standards. I mean, first of all, we just gotta say this. I mean, this is the weird thing about, sexology in regards to, you could say this about basically any field of study, really, but, sexology is really the one field where it's, you really get, the weird angles where it's, some people are completely valid, they know what the fuck they're talking about, but then also you get, random cranks that just say shit that just don't make no sense at all. I brought up Freud earlier, and we need not remember the Salmonella video where he literally explains what Freud's actual beliefs were, and it's they're actually kind of insane, and why do we take this guy seriously? There might be other aspects of his perspective that might have actually been somewhat valid, but the one I'm bringing up specifically is penis envy, where it's again, Freud was kind of weird. And also, I just want to make this brief mention for this factoid so that you guys understand that he's, again, not in the sense of, pro-trans in any sort of sense. But, this is, somewhat not related, but, this is just, again, this is just to bring up the point that I mentioned earlier, where it's remember when I told you that he did, really weird things with David and Brian Reimer? Well, just in case you're wondering, he was also very outspoken about his beliefs in regards to one specific sexual paraphilia. You can probably take a wild guess which one it was, but I'll give you a little hint. It's the one that is shared by the President of the United States, referring to it as, quote, harmless in most instances, and even gave an interview to a magazine that was pro this paraphilia, where John Money stated that he believed that 10-year-old boys should get with men in their 30s. Again, John Money is a really fucked up individual, but let's ignore that and focus purely on his stance in regards to gender and adult sexuality, because that's like the main focus. Like, what about his actual stances in regards to, like, again, gender and adult sexuality? Well, again, I need to bring this up, neither of which were pro-trans. Like, he openly described trans women as, quote, devious, demanding, and manipulative in their relationships with people on whom they are also dependent, and possibly incapable of love. But even the root of his theory of gender neutrality was literally an excuse to attempt to erase intersex people through these surgeries, which was the crux behind this experiment. Again, his belief was that if he could groom David, a cisgender boy who was not intersex and had no inclinations of being transgender at all, into believing that they were a girl, then his theory was proven right without a shadow of a doubt, and people would be more inclined to support his stances on intersex genital mutilation. His perspective on, like, gender being malleable in the first 2 years of life was basically a warning to people, arguing that gender roles should be destigmatized. That way, people would be less likely to transition, being quoted as saying, a tomboyish girl, prenatally androgenized, grows up to be a career-minded woman, not a transsexual who claims to need sex reassignment. Even his fucking creepy rehearsal plays were made with that as an attempt to erase the LGBTQ, arguing that if you make those rehearsal plays commonplace, you can simply erase homosexuality by basically reinforcing the sexual roles on, again, as I mentioned before, his belief on human sexuality and gender was basically a heavy lean towards the nurture side of the nature v nurture side. Like, in the same way, like even to the point where when people would, like, claim these experiments were bad, he would argue not really against that perspective that these were bad, but he would argue against people who had a 100% nature perspective, saying of people who disagreed with him, like, that they believed, quote, masculinity and femininity are built into genes, so women should get back to the mattress and the kitchen. Like, for lack of a better term, I think he's a TERF. I'm pretty sure that's what it means. Because, like, he says things that are supposed to be, like, super feminist, but then also he says shit like this, and it's just like, so I'm thinking that he's like it seems like he's a TERF. And I guess I should say this again. I know he can't hear me, because, it's a little hot down there, but, I don't believe any of that shit, and I think you're fucking insane. The nature v nurture argument has always been a bit of a complicated one, and it's still somewhat debated in academic circles, but the consensus is now, like, the two factors are interconnected rather than, like, a strict adherence to one side or the other. Like, the debate is now more of a how much of the factors matter in the role in regards to, like, sex and gender, and not 100% gay gene versus 100% watching Steven Universe. Which is why money, and by extension the conservative mentality on trans issues, is wrong. And I don't say that lightly, because honestly, to me, John Money's stance looks a lot more like how conservatives view gender and sex. They both agree that if you just force specific gender roles on your kids, you can basically instill that into them and erase a person's transness or gayness. That's literally what conversion therapy is. And, like, there was also, like on the Wikipedia page for John Money, there's actually a link to another guy who literally, like, his full thesis was that he was, like, trying to learn about trans, like, identity, specifically so he could figure out how to get rid of it. And another slight aspect to understand, like, just money, that John Money wasn't even, like, he's not even, like, there's, like, some people also want to use it as a way to, like, shit on, like, the, the academic and medical community, but it's like, no, he's, like, even bad on that regard, because his experiment failed, and then he lied about it anyways, and just said it succeeded. He didn't care about the science, he didn't care about the data. He certainly did not care about the people he experimented on. Money wanted fame, and, for lack of a term, money and glory above all else. It was only through the work of other sexologists and the subjects of these clearly failed, like, experiments that showed Money's views were shit. And most prominently through like documentaries and stuff like there's one documentary that's available on YouTube. It's called Intersection. I'm gonna link it somewhere here. But there's also another one. I forget what it's called, but like like I'll put the word about it in the description or something. But like yeah, like just showing that this fundamentally it just doesn't work. Another major element that's odd about the right-wing framing of this story is that it disproves one of their main arguments about trans people, and it's the fact that you can, this story disproves the idea that you can groom someone to being trans. Like, the mainstream talking point among conservatives is literally that there is this mass epidemic to turn your kids gay. Again, seemingly a strict adherence to the nurture argument in regards to homosexuality. Again, very interesting. Conservatives seem to have a lot more agreement with John Money than I do. This story again shows that this is just not possible. Like, no matter what everybody told David didn't believe that he was a girl once. He might have not had the words to describe his feelings, but once he did, he spoke up. And the idea that a person who is not already preconditioned to be trans through something like biology or psychology can magically becomes trans because they see a trans flag in an episode of their favorite TV show is stupid. That's why the nature versus nurture argument is a thing. Because, if you were purely on the side of the nurture side, this story shows that that's just not true. Because David was, and again, even just being trans clearly shows that it's not true. Because trans people in conservative rural communities still come out as trans, maybe not as much due to social conditioning, but of course that's a different factor than just them being trans. Again, nature versus nurture. There has to be both a biological and a psychological component to this. What we are advocating for is that people who already are preconditioned to be trans through their biology or psychology having a better ability to understand themselves so that we can help them through their journey of self-discovery. That's the thing. Like allowing for trans flags to be on TV shows will not, if you remove all the trans flags from TV shows, trans people do not go away. They don't go away. That doesn't happen. You just kick the bucket for a couple of years. That's at most what you're going to do. Now, of course, I don't think they actually believe that. I don't believe for certain. I don't believe for, maybe at one point I used to believe that they were stupid, but no, at this point, it's just no, they're just actually evil at this point. At this point, they're just actually evil. They know that trans people exist. They know. They might say all those words that they don't believe they exist or whatever, but they do believe they exist. You can't deny their existence when you can look at them right in their eyes. They don't believe that trans, grooming of kids is happening. They don't believe that at all. What they believe is that trans people are being more accepted into society, and that's bad. That's the bad thing that they don't like. They don't want trans people to learn about themselves. What they want is for the 41% to become a 100%. That's what they want. But they'll settle for your independent misery of you being depressed and repressed in the closet. That's what they'll settle for. They'll settle for that. As long as you're miserable, they'll settle for it. I mean, you see, I remember the story, literally, when this, I need an update on that story because it's a story that's so fucking weird. Because there was a conservative influencer that literally they had a child and their child was experiencing trans thoughts. I guess they were experiencing being trans, and then they basically said they removed all their trans flags, all their trans stuff, and then they took a photo of them before before when they're still going through this trans phase, and then after they quote unquote stopped the trans phase, and you saw the two photos. Then when they were in their trans phase, quote unquote, was they were happy, they were giddy, and their current phase of who they were at the time was absolutely miserable. And I'm like, this person is 100% going to commit suicide or cut this woman out of her life. Hopefully they'll just grow up and cut this woman out of their life forever. But I would not hold my breath if I checked out that story and found out that that individual was no longer with us. But there's one more aspect of this framing to me that doesn't make any sense, at least in my perspective. Now, I'm not trans, so I can't speak for this 100% certainty. This is just my interpretation, based on the perspective that I've heard from other trans individuals that I've known, or watched stuff about trans people and stuff. But again, trans audience members can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just the perspective that I am aware of from what I've seen thus far. But in order to understand that, we need to reanalyze. Like, look at this. Let's look at the Dave Reimer story again. David was told by everybody around him his entire life, you are a girl. You are a girl. You are a tomboy. You are a tomboy. You are a girl. You are a girl. You are a girl. Girl, girl, girl. Girl, 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 girl. That's what they were told. That was what David was told his entire life. And despite allegedly being a girl, like, again, he was told every day of his life. He had no reason to believe anything else. He knew something wasn't right. Even when he asked questions to his mom, like, you know, that he doesn't feel any sort of, like, actual anything. Like, he feels nothing about, like, being a woman. And his mom would reassure him again, like, oh, no, you're just a tomboy, you know, that's just whatever. Remember that fucking tomboy quote that I said? Like, that was a real quote, 100% a real quote from an interview that David Reimer and his mom were having on Oprah. But there's another thing about that quote. There was like a little bit of an expansion of that quote that makes this really, really fucked up, even more so. And it was the fact that David Reimer's mom literally looked at David in the face, apparently, and told David, like, in response to David questioning their gender identity, was, like, you know, the full quote is, oh, you're just a tomboy. There's nothing wrong with being a tomboy. There's nothing wrong with being yourself. Again, this fucking bitch had the audacity to look David in the eyes and tell them that they had no problem, like, there was nothing wrong with being themselves when they didn't even give David that fucking chance to be themselves. And this is the thing. And why am I bringing this up? Because this is important. This is really important to me. So, all of these compounding factors, from the way that story was told to me, when I heard that story, every time I heard every aspect of the David Reimer story in this aspect, the one thing popped in my head. This sounds just like the trans experience. This literally just borderline almost identical to the trans, to the point where trans people literally use this example without using David or whatever by name. Like literally trans people like say, like, what if when you were a young child, you were forced to be the opposite gender when you were a child? And then would you feel like this, like that? Literally, the David story, like, literally, aside from the beginning part of the story where David was forcibly like done all these surgeries, David's story is almost identical to a trans person being in a body that they do not identify with, that they do not feel comfortable in, and they know in their heart of hearts that they don't feel like what they're assigned as. And everyone else around them is just telling them, no. You're just wrong. No. You're actually, like, it's just this, like, oh, you're just, like, literally, trans people, a lot of trans people are being told, like, they get told, like, oh, you're just gay. Like, if you're a trans girl, you're, like, being told, no, you're just, like, a twink gay. You're just a twink gay. Oh, you're just, like, you're just, like, a tomboy, like a tomboy, like, person. You're not. It's also the notion that the transphobes use now. It's like, oh, trans people are actually erasing lesbians, or they're erasing. I guess the lie is just that they erase lesbians. Like, listening to that fucking interview that David and his mom did on the Oprah show, that when I heard that fucking quote, it reminded me of a quote from the hit TV show Steven Universe. I've talked about it before. I'll talk about it some more. Sadly, it won't be a Pride Month video this year, but it might be a Pride Month related video next year because I gotta defend Steven Universe's honor at some point, because Steven Universe is a fucking awesome show. But, to reiterate this factoid again, Steven Universe did not make me pro-trans. I was already pro-trans before I watched Steven Universe, but there was always, like, I mean, there's a lot of things about Steven Universe that you need to say. Let's just read it. I just get back to the notes so I can stay on focus again. Steven Universe was created by a non-binary cartoonist named Rebecca Sugar. The entire show is about LGBTQ themes, but the final episodes of the show are especially seen by many as a transgender allegory. Again, based on Rebecca Sugar's own lifestyle as a non-binary individual. But there's one line that has always stuck with me. In the finale of the original show, there was always one line that stuck with me. Ever since I first watched it, it was a line. It wasn't even necessarily what it stood for. It obviously means a lot in regards to LGBTQ themes and Pride Month and all this other stuff. But it's just, the line itself is a really fucking good line. And again, it's really good in regards to pride themes, especially trans themes. And that's why, again, the episode kind of seems like a huge trans allegory. You'll see why she reminded me of this line when I say it. For context, for anybody who hasn't seen the show, it's basically the final confrontation with the bad guy. Not going to spoil too much because I want you guys, because if you haven't seen it, you should. But this line is a really good line regardless of it. The line goes as follows. I only want you to be yourself. If you can't do that, I'll do it for you. Sounds eerily familiar to what David's mom told him. Nothing wrong with being yourself, as long as it was the yourself that she sanctioned for him. And again, that sounds eerily familiar to what trans kids go through all the time. And my moral philosophy is that people, much less children, should not have other people's expectations pushed onto them, especially when it comes to something as deep to them personally as their own fucking gender. It was wrong when John Money forced what he wanted to on David, and it is wrong that you want to force what you want to onto the trans kids. You can claim that all you want, that it's the left that's trying to force stuff onto kids and you're trying to protect the children, but you need not look further than the actual bills and platforms that people that are oppositional to trans people espouse. The bill that's been one of the main centerpieces for the GOP's treatment of LGBTQ children is called the Parental Bill of Rights. Again, notice where the attention is. How does this affect the parents? Give the parents the ultimate say on the matters. You believe that children should be property to the parents instead of human beings who can make their own choices on certain matters. Which, again, that was David's parents' position. They forced the electrocauterization and they forced the vaginoplasty. And the reactionaries of the modern day want to force trans people into the closet. Meanwhile, again, the pro-trans side wants people to express their identity how they see fit. They want more information out there so that people can readily make more informed decisions on these matters. So that literally, if more information about this stuff kind of came out, if there was more information about trans stuff available, then again, it wouldn't, literally, this is what would happen on a lot of aspects. I mean, even on the aspects of people who claim there's going to be I'm sure there might be quote unquote occasional people that might go into the trans, it's one of the main things that a lot of people believe in the start of they believe in a lot of aspects where it's your kid might get overdiagnosed with ADHD or something whatever that's one of the major fears that a lot of parents have in a lot of those regards. They don't want to take their kids to get a test for ADHD or whatever because they don't want their kid to be put on Ritalin or whatever. But it's but what if your kid needs Ritalin to focus in school? What? That's the problem. It's they're literally just treating it as if they just it's just not a possibility that their kid could need Ritalin. It's you're just treating it the inherent possibility that your kid won't need to be trans or whatever. You don't know that. Have you asked them? In an ideal world, this wouldn't have happened because there would have been more information out there about trans people that would have understood, this is not a good decision for David because this is not what David needs. And here's what would happen to all the, people who claim that, there's going to be, more kids that are going to become trans. Here's what's going to happen, to a kid who's not trans, who might end up being, put into these programs. They're going to be I'm not trans, and then be done. They're not going to be a part of it no more. It's not going to go any further because there's not going to be any questions because they'll have all the information readily available for them. Again, we just want more information to be out there so that people can make informed decisions about their own bodily autonomy. So, no, I am not going to allow you to weaponize what happened to David Reimer to spread your Nazi talking points about trans people. And yes, they are Nazi talking points about trans people. The modern day right-wing stances on trans issues are exactly identical to the ones that the Nazis took back in the 1930s. This is an absolute 100% verifiable fact that you could look it up for yourself. Trans rights are human rights. Go fuck yourself if you disagree. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to find a future video of mine comes out. And if you want more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon. Happy Pride Month!